Hi guys! In this tutorial I'll be showing you how to assemble this tabletop flower fairy. The flower I chose for this fairy's wings is the ever beautiful Peony. This fairy is designed very similarly to my woodland tabletop fairy. Instead of the leaf vines cascading out of her wings like my woodland fairy, I have these floral vines. Like in my woodland fairy, these floral vines hang down dramatically over whatever surface you place her on and really adds beautiful layering. And then for more layering, I added some buds and a few leaf branches in between her wings. I'm so happy with how she turned out, especially with spring coming upon us. I think she'd be perfect for a garden party or, of course, a fairy party. Here's a look at all my tabletop fairies together. I have my Livia fairy, my woodland fairy, and there's my flower fairy. And then I have this place card fairy that holds names of guests. And you can find links to these fairies in the description below and also video tutorials on my channel. Now let's get started on assembling this flower fairy. Here are the materials you'll need for this fairy. For my woodland fairy, I used glue for the assembly, and I think I mentioned in that video that the glue wasn't necessary and you could just use double-sided tape. So that's what we'll be doing for this fairy. The double-sided tape I'll be using is the usual with lining on it, and I'll link that below. And the X-Acto knife is what I'll use to just remove the lining on the tape, so you really can switch it out with any sharp object. Now let's go over the files you'll see in your download. To make your fairy, you'll be using the SVG file inside the cutouts folder. And we'll look at this in a little bit. In the design folder, you'll see this fairy here, which is a vector design of the fairy. And I include this so that you can use it on printed pieces like posters or t-shirts. Now let's look at the folder you will be using to cut out your fairy. In the cutouts folder, you will see two more folders. The first folder contains the fairy's body, which is what you see here. If you're familiar with my other fairies, I've organized this a little bit differently than I normally do. As with my other table fairies, I have two fairies that you can make. One with the wings attached, so the wings will be the same color as her body, and the second option is with her wings separated, and this is so you can choose a different color for her wings. And with my other table fairies, I normally have these two types of fairies in different folders, but for this one I've put them in the same folder, and then I've separated the vines out into a different folder. One thing I need to mention is that the fairies' bodies here may look the same, but the legs on each piece are actually slightly staggered. And the way these fairies come together is that for each fairy you're going to be putting two fairy bodies back to back. So say you're making this fairy here with the wings attached. Make sure you cut out both these fairy bodies even though they look very similar. Now if you make a mistake and cut out two of one of them, like say this one, it's not a big deal. It's not going to ruin your fairy. It's just that the legs won't be staggered. The other thing to keep in mind is, as I mentioned before, for each fairy you'll need two fairy bodies and two wings if the wings are separate. And these two fairy parts will come together back to back to create the final fairy. So if you're using one-sided paper like glitter paper or watercolor paper, make sure you cut out mirror images of each piece. And as you can see here, I already have them set up as mirror image of each other. So just be aware of that in case you're flipping pieces around. And if this is confusing right now, just keep watching and you'll see what I mean when we go to assemble our fairy. And as with my other fairies, if you're using a Cricut machine, you'll need to ungroup everything first. Then click on each of these fairies and ungroup again so that the fold lines, which are the black dotted lines you see here, are separate from the fairy. And the reason you have to do this is because dotted lines show up as solid cut lines on the Cricut software. So to change it to dotted lines, ungroup first and then select the lines, the fold lines, and change them from basic cut to score lines. Then when you're ready to cut, select the fold lines again and the fairy's body and then attach to make sure that they get sent to your machine together. And moving on to the second folder, which is the vines folder. In here you'll find the rest of the pieces of the fairy. So here we have the floral vines, the leaf branches, the bud branch, and this is something that's new to my designs. These are the backing pieces for her wings. There are two of them, but they're the same piece. And what they do is they go behind her wings. And if you cut them out in a different color, they really make her wings pop out more. You're welcome to leave this piece out. It's not a critical part of the wing structure. And that's the same for any of these pieces. You can take creative liberty here and include or exclude as many pieces as you want. Okay, so now that we have the file details out of the way, let's assemble our fairy. I'm going to be making this fairy here, and these are the pieces we'll be using. As you can see, we'll be making a fairy with the wings separated. If you're making a fairy with the wings attached, just skip this next step where I attach the wings to the body. Here are the pieces we'll be working with first. Please take note here of the wings. These two petals, or bumps, should be up and close to the fairy's head. If you make a mistake and attach it upside down, it's okay. Just make sure that the petals of the wing does not overlap the fairy's head, and remember to just attach your second wing upside down also. To attach the wings to the body, first lay out your pieces so they're all facing the right way. You should do this especially if you're using one-sided paper like glitter paper to make sure the right side is facing outward. Once you have your pieces laid out correctly, fold each wing at the fold line. This fold line will help you with where your tape will go, so we're just enhancing it so you can see it better. Then cut a piece of tape and place it on the wing band below the fold line. Do this for both wings. Next, remove the lining on your tape and attach the wing to the fairy's body. On the body, you should be able to see the flat edge where the wing will sit. You want that body edge to sit right at the fold line of the wing. And remember to watch that the wing is not overlapping her head. Now repeat with the other body and wing. Next, we're going to attach the wing backings. These will be attached like this. First, take your fairies and flip them over so the side where you've attached the wings are facing up. These wing backings will sit right on top of the back of the fairy wing like this. Cut a thin piece of tape and place it on the fairy wing above the wing fold line. Do the same with the other fairy wing. Now remove the lining on your tape and attach the wing backing. Remember that on this piece also, the two bumps should also be up and closest to the head. The flat edge of the backing piece should sit right at the wing fold line, and just make sure to center it in that space. Repeat with the other wing. And now you have two fairies with their wings attached. If you're starting with the fairy with attached wings like this lilac one, you can follow the same steps to attach the wing backings, and it would attach like this. The next step is to attach the vines and leaves inside the fairy's wings. First, take the fairy that is facing right and flip her over so that her underside is facing upwards. The width of your fairy's fold line should be 1¼ inches like mine, but I know with some cutting machine software, designs get resized, so you can measure yours just in case. Now cut a piece of tape that's about 1¼ inches long, or however long your fold line is. The width of my tape roll is about 5/7 of an inch. Your tape should be at least 1/4 inch wide because this is where your vines will sit. Place your tape beneath the fold line, but try to get as close as possible to it. As you can see here, the width of my tape is almost too wide and just hits the edge of that fairy's body. So just watch for that if you're using wider tape, and just cut any excess tape off. Next, fold all the fold lines you see on the fairy's body, at the skirt and at the legs. This will help you see where your tape should be placed. Place one piece of tape at her head, and then at her skirt, make sure when you place tape in that area not to go past those fold lines at her legs and at her skirt. So here I'm just trying to cover that whole area. Lucky me, look how close I got. Next, remove the lining on the tape that you placed at the wing fold line. The first piece we're going to attach is a leaf branch. Take a close look at the 2 leaf branches you cut out, and you'll notice that one has 5 leaves and one has 6 leaves. Take the 5 leaf branch and make sure that the curve of the branch is going towards your left. Now place it onto your tape near the fairy's head. Here you can have it stick up over the fairy's wings as much as you want. I would try to leave about a 1/4 inch overlapping the tape area. The next piece we're going to place is the shorter of the 2 floral vines. You should have one long vine and one short vine. Take the short vine and place it near the bottom of the fairy's wing. And here you just need to make sure that no parts of this floral vine is overlapping over the fairy's body. Next, take your bud branch and place it somewhere in the center. Now take your second leaf branch, and this time make sure that that slight curve is headed towards your right. Now place it somewhere in the lower half of that tape area. And the last piece we'll be putting on is the long vine. And again, this one, make sure that it's not overlapping any part of the fairy's body. And here I'm placing mine towards the bottom of the wing. Now cut a second piece of tape about the same length as this first piece and place it directly on top. Once again, lining it up with that fold line. And this piece is just to make sure those vines sit securely inside the fairy's wings. Now take your second fairy and align it on top of the first. Once you have them both aligned, hold the fairy's head down with your left hand and then carefully lift up the top fairy and remove the lining of that tape at the wing. Then press down to secure the 2 fairies together. Now the only thing left to do is to remove the lining on all the other pieces of the tape inside the fairy. And here, before I press the 2 heads together, I'm just making sure they're aligned again, because sometimes the fairies can go out of alignment. And that's it for the assembly. Now let me show you how to open the wings. So the first thing you want to do here is just slightly open up her legs, and then at her skirt, fold up those folds all the way up to her body. You want these to sit at a perfect right angle. Next, open up her wings and use the bud branch as a guide to which side each branch and vine opens to. So essentially, the bud branch will stay centered, and whatever branch or vine is on the right will open with the wing on the right, and same with pieces on the left. Your fairy may not sit upright right away, so let me just show you some things you can do. The first thing is to curl that floral vine where it hits the fairy's wings, and then where it hits the edge of your table surface, curl that downwards. And do the same with the short floral vine on the other side. Curl it up and under the fairy's wings so that it's not interfering. And now what I like to do is curl up all those flowers on the floral vine. And that's it, guys. Your fairy is done. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun designing this fairy, so I will definitely be creating more flower fairies in the future. If you'd like to see my new upcoming designs, please subscribe to my channel and follow me on Pinterest and Instagram for daily posts. Bye, everyone.